What's up, guys? So in my last video, which was titled how to overcome, How to overcome your depression with the whole flow chart and everything. Somebody left a comment and they said, I'm curious as to what you would tell somebody who has PTSD. Because in the last video, if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link in the description. You can go watch that if you want. But essentially, I broke it down to a very simple flow chart about that explains how to get over your depression by kind of going down a checklist. And, you know, if you're like, are you doing this? Yes. Like, are you working out? Yes. Okay. So like, let's check this other thing to see if there's some other box we can check that will kind of stack the deck in your favor to overcome your depression, right? A flow chart. You guys know what a flow chart is. So anyway, I made it very simple and very straightforward. And that's just kind of, I guess, how I convey information. I try to be as literal as possible. And I think this is a valid topic that I honestly didn't really think too much about until just now. But having thought about it for about 30 seconds, I'm fully prepared to give you my expert opinion on it right now. So what advice would I give somebody who has PTSD? Okay, now, first of all, it depends what kind of PTSD you have. Because this term gets thrown around a lot by people who are like, I'm sorry, just like crybaby little bitches who are like, oh my God, my third grade teacher like scolded me, I have PTSD. No, you don't. Like, you saw your whole family get murdered in front of you. All right, that's a little bit more legitimate, you know? But what is really the problem, right? Let's think about it like that. Because what is PTSD? I mean, we know what it is, post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, fine. But why is that bad, really, is the main question. Why is that bad? And the reason why PTSD is seen as a bad thing is because it prevents the victim, let's say, or I guess victim, right? I hate that word. But anyway, it prevents the person with PTSD from doing certain things that would otherwise be easy to do for like your average person. Right, so that's really what the problem is that the PTSD is either preventing them from doing it because they're experiencing so much emotional arousal, like negative arousal, you could say, and it's preventing them from doing it, right? A simple example is like, I don't know, whatever, somebody has agoraphobia because they have PTSD from shitting their pants or something. So now they don't want to go outside, or they're scared of germs, or whatever the case may be. Normally it's linked to a traumatic event, as opposed to just some sort of like latent fear. But the point is that the cause doesn't really matter, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because the solution is pretty much the same. So the advice that I would give to somebody who's trying to get over PTSD, this is the example that I'll give you, right? I'll tell you a story from my own personal experience when I had very mild PTSD. But when I was living in LA, I think it was 2017, I got into a car accident. Totally my fault. I was driving and I was looking at my phone, texting somebody, and I didn't go through a red light. It was green. You know, I went through the intersection at a green light and I looked down. I was either texting somebody or like checking my map on my phone or something. And when I looked up, there was a car with brake lights in front of me that I had assumed would just keep going. And I slammed on the brakes and rear-ended him. He scooted forward a little bit because he saw me coming, so the crash wasn't that bad, but it was very sudden, scared the shit out of me. I was fine, he was fine, everything was okay. The reason I ran into him and the reason that he stopped in the middle of the street was because he was behind a car who was turning into a parking lot, and whatever, it doesn't matter. So the point is that this was a very stressful experience for me. After it happened, you know, my heart was beating really fast. I was dead broke at the time, didn't have any money to pay for any repairs. I needed my car to drive for Uber. It was like, I was freaking out. It was really bad, very emotionally aroused. Again, I know that's not like going to war in Iraq and like seeing dead bodies everywhere. Fine, it's totally different. But the concept is the same for how I got over it. It's just that for somebody with a more extreme case, it's just going to require more layers of like action, if that makes sense. So, after I got into this accident, went through the whole insurance thing, I noticed that when I was driving, I would get kind of very scared when I was driving for no reason, really. Anytime I would kind of like use the brakes or go through an intersection, I just got like a little bit nervous. I got scared that I was going to get into an accident again. Completely irrational fear. And I'm a very good driver normally. People who are from Los Angeles are generally much better drivers than people that come from outside of Los Angeles, because in LA, when you drive, there's just like no rules. There's traffic everywhere. People just do crazy shit because the streets are all fucked up. So I'm a good driver. You know, it's not like I was a bad driver and I know I'm like some old Chinese lady or something, you know, like I know what I'm doing. But I was still scared when I was driving, especially immediately after the accident, because it was still fresh in my mind. And the way that I got over it, it's kind of an anticlimactic ending to a story, but the way that I got over it is just over time. I was continuing to drive and I realized that I wasn't going to get into an accident every time I drove, and I just got over it. I just forgot about it, because what ended up happening is I had so many more experiences after the one traumatic experience that kind of overwrote that memory, that the, you know, the balance of the scales of like all of these memories of me not getting in an accident kind of overweighed the one intense memory of me actually getting into an accident. Now, obviously, the more intense the memory is, the more like visceral it was, the more, you know, the more, I don't want to say the more boxes it checks, but like the more, the wider the breadth of the experience is. Like, for example, if instead of just like having, you know, getting into this car accident, if, you know, whatever, I hit some lady and like my life was ruined and, you know, whatever, it's like I had brain damage or something and she was famous and like my name got dragged through the mud and it was like this whole fucking crazy thing, I'd be way more scared to drive, right? But the incident was not that intense, so it required less overwriting of the memories, if that makes sense. If it had happened to that degree, then I would probably like never want to drive. Like I wouldn't drive for like 6 months. I'd be so scared, you understand? And what to do in that situation, right? So the point is that the way to get over this is the same way that you would teach an animal to get over, or teach an animal to do anything really, is that you just, or I guess teach an animal to get over something that scared them. You just very slowly, inch by inch, put them through a similar experience or put them through whatever behavior you want them to complete and show them that they're not actually going to die from it, right? So like the person who left this comment, I'm not sure specifically what you mean from PTSD. Probably should have asked you that before making this video. But the point is that whatever, almost regardless of the event, whatever it was, all you have to do is identify the behavior that it is preventing you from doing and incrementally perform specific steps of that behavior, if that makes sense, right? So for driving, for example, I was so scared to drive. What I would do is I would, you know, I'm just making shit up now, right? But what I would do is I would go out to my garage and sit in the car. You know, I would just open the car and sit in the car. Wouldn't turn it on, wouldn't do anything, right? Next step, I would go outside, sit in the car, and turn the car on. Next step, I would go outside, turn it on, put it in, you know, reverse to back out of the garage and reverse out of the garage and then go back in. You understand? So like very slowly, I would just kind of build it up until I was at the point where I had done all of these like little steps, seen that they weren't going to kill me, and then done the complete action or behavior that I wanted to do. The problem though, is that with today's like mental illness culture and like, and because it is a culture, it's like, I have a mental illness. Here's my fucking anorexia badge. Like, I'm so cool, you know? I've had anorexia for 8 years. You've only had it for 3 years. Oh my God, I know so much more than you. You know, subscribe to my channel. Or even if they don't have a channel, it's like people wear their fucking illnesses as a badge of honor. I guess we all kind of do it to a certain degree, but the mental illness people are absolutely the worst because they claim to be victims, and the way that they claim to be victims implies that they have no desire to actually change. Oh, but I go to therapy 3 times a week. I haven't gotten better. Yeah, because you're not actually trying to get better. You know what I mean? That's my argument, at least. So anyway, the problem is that people don't actually want to do it. They're much like, using the driving example again, let's say that instead of driving, let's say I managed to find like some sort of workaround where I would get somebody else to drive me, or I would ride a bicycle, or I'd take the bus, or I'd fucking ride my skateboard or whatever. I would have managed to find a solution that was not, that was like comfortable enough for me so that I would not have to do this scary behavior. It doesn't actually solve the problem, but at least I'm able to move on with my life in a reasonably comfortable way and kind of use a little Band-Aid for it. Is that the best thing to do? One could make the argument that no, it isn't, that the mere act of pushing your comfort zone has inherent value. And that, you know, the more you push your comfort zone, the more you will expand as a person, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay, so that is my video. Not like you even requested this video, I just thought I'd make it. Thought it was interesting. Let me know what you think about that. Am I right? Am I wrong? Also, I have an interesting video or an article on this topic. It's called Grease the Groove, Grease 1,000 Grooves. Probably should have made this video about that. Maybe I'll do the next video about that. Anyway, go check that out. It has a lot to do with this topic that I talked about now. Check it out on my blog, link in the description. Follow me on Instagram. Peace.